coming up on the April 22nd edition of Carolina Week. Fraternities have special rules to keep a lid on alcohol consumption, but one ex-fraternity member says the rules are a joke.
Shut away in a tiny cell up to 23 hours a day in solitary confinement. But changes could be coming to life in prison.
It's a whale of a story. Fewer than 500 of these gentle giants are left off the North Carolina coast. All that and more.
Carolina Week starts right now.
From the UNC School of Journalism and Mass Communication, covering Carolina in HD, this is Carolina Week.
From racist chants at the University of Oklahoma to a pledge book filled with hateful rhetoric at NC State, fraternities have generated lots of negative news this semester. Good evening, I'm Kristen Lee.
And I'm Susanna Black. Thank you for joining us. On this campus, there's the ongoing investigation into the mysterious death of fraternity brother David Shannon and recent questions about whether the Interfraternity Council enforces its own rules about alcohol.
Sometimes students drink way too many of these.
My four brothers, would get blackout or vomit from activities we were forced to do.
That's just one reason Michael walked out of his fraternity for good.
There are a lot of practices that I just found important, and I didn't want to contribute to the organization anymore.
Michael, whose name and voice we've changed, was a member of an IFC fraternity for a number of years and says the partying became too much.
They were literally handing out bottles of cheap champagne to everyone who was walking in the door.
Especially because it was against the rules.
We kept an off-the-books account.
A secret slush fund, as Michael called it, which he says the frat used to buy alcohol and illegal drugs for parties.
It's sort of a compulsory thing. That you have to pay into this extra fund. Basic measures had to be taken in order for the IFC not to find out.
24 fraternities are under the governance of the Interfraternity Council, or IFC, a board made up of fraternity members. They write their own policies and are the only body that can enforce them. Peter Diaz is the president of the IFC.
Purchasing alcohol, a fraternity purchasing alcohol is not illegal. That's the thing.
Well, this violates your policy.
It violates it if they're providing it common source.
Actually, they can't buy it at all. The policy states no member can coordinate the purchase of alcohol for members or guests, so no slush funds.
That's illegal, but we don't have any way of sort of auditing fraternities' finances.
Aaron Bockenheimer is the director of fraternity and sorority life at UNC. Even he doesn't have the authority to enforce the IFC's rules.
It is not surprising to us that chapters out there are providing alcohol, okay?
He says self-governance isn't working the way it should.
I don't disagree with the fact that it's not working. There may be a need to totally rethink the system.
Bockenheimer says the key might be teaching the groups how to govern themselves. As part of self-governance, the executive board of the IFC will do a party patrol during the last day of classes, visiting all fraternities to see how things are going on the major party day we all call LDOC.
Solitary confinement in North Carolina prisons could be changing. Reporter Ben Smart tells us that starting this month, the State Corrections Department is partnering with the Vera Institute of Justice, a national organization that helps prison systems find better ways to treat inmates.
Joshua Panter keeps a careful eye on prison security.
I'm a correctional lieutenant here at Central Prison.
It's his job to supervise officers and keep inmates safe. Panter says restrictive housing or solitary confinement is one way the prison maintains order.
For inmates that are healthy from a mental health or medical perspective, restrictive housing has helped them to be more compliant with the facility rules.
Inmates could be locked in a cell like this one, up to 23 hours a day. For the other hour, inmates might go to an outdoor exercise room like this one. Concrete walls, dim lighting, and high windows. A scathing 2014 report from the UNC Law School says solitary confinement is torture. More than 225 pages, the authors don't mince words. Solitary confinement is ineffective at decreasing violence, preserving public safety, managing monetary resources, and violates human dignity and justice.
I'd say that it's torture and that it's very slow torture.
Prison Services attorney Elizabeth Simpson represents inmates.
Human contact is as necessary as food and water. The only time they have a human touch them is when they're being escorted, when they're in full shackles.
Public Safety Deputy Commissioner Tim Moose says there are legitimate reasons for sending an inmate to solitary.
It can be as a result of a disciplinary issue, a behavior issue, a safety issue.
The UNC Law Report explains further. The two most common disciplinary infractions are disobeying an order and profane language. These rule violations usually don't involve physical evidence. It's up to the officer's interpretation. Rehabilitation Director Nicole Sullivan says a new partnership with justice researchers is bringing change.
It's going to look very different, like programs, like very intensive programs that allow an inmate to work their way down and back into general population because they're achieving a certain milestone.
Prison officials say they aren't sure if solitary confinement is helping prisoners improve themselves. In Chapel Hill, I'm Ben Smart reporting.
The UNC Law Report also notes that the #1 complaint from inmates about solitary confinement has to do with due process when they're found guilty of prison infractions.
Transparency, something the Carrboro Police and the Board of Aldermen say they're trying to create with body-worn cameras. Our Alyssa Armstrong is live at the Carrboro Police Department with the details. Alyssa?
Critics say there's nothing transparent about the policy, and the public needs to know what the police are up to.
Carrboro Police and the Board of Aldermen support the concept of using the body cameras.
If we have concerns about officers or citizens' behavior, we have created a record of that.
But media law professor Kathy Packer sees an issue with their policy.
It's not transparent if we don't get to see the videos.
ATAC says the department can't release the video if it's evidence in a criminal investigation or involves a personnel issue, saying it's the same policy for dashboard cameras as well. Critics wonder what doesn't fall into one of those categories.
If the purpose of the videos is to help us see how police work, we need to be able to see the videos.
The North Carolina Open Government Coalition says choosing not to release personnel footage is unique to North Carolina. The coalition says unless the video is from a criminal investigation, it should be released, especially if it shows police misconduct. ATAC and members of the Board of Aldermen disagree.
My own position is that they should really be very tightly guarded and should only be accessed under a court order.
ATAC's biggest concern? The videos show an officer's entire life's work for the world to see. He says releasing videos makes the officer feel like he or she isn't trusted. Critics say if that's the concern, why use the cameras at all?
Legislator proposed House Bill 537. This would require police departments across North Carolina to use the cameras. And many departments already have them, such as Greensboro and Davidson. Even UNC plans to equip its officers with the cameras by the end of the school year. Susanna?
Alyssa Armstrong live in Carrboro. Thank you.
Carrboro might be changing its zip code. The town of Carrboro is right next to Chapel Hill, so close that some Carrboro residents have a Chapel Hill zip code. A Carrboro spokesperson said some residents want their zip code to match the rest of the town. If there's enough interest, the U.S. Postal Service would, you guessed it, conduct another survey.
Group homes house adults with mental disabilities and help them to lead independent lifestyles. But funding issues have put some residents' housing status in question. Michael McGinnis reports.
Meet Matt Kelly. Kelly was born to older parents and diagnosed with high-functioning autism in his teens. He's lived in a Charlotte area adult group home for the past 18 years. But due to a lack of funding from the state, Kelly and hundreds of others like him face an uncertain future. His parents, Stephen and Joanne, are 81 and 85 years old.
I mean, if we go and they say there's no room at the group home because of funding, what street does Matt go and live under one bridge? I mean, it's scary as heck.
The funding issue comes from a 2012 bill that changed the criteria for who could receive Medicaid funding for personal care services. In 2013, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services estimated about half of the 21,000 adults that received these services would no longer qualify. Julia Adams is a lobbyist for the ARC of North Carolina. She says state officials realize the severity of the problem and are working to find a long-term solution.
They really don't want to see these individuals who are our state's most needy and most fragile suddenly displaced from their homes.
Mark Phillips is the CEO of Autism Services of Mecklenburg County.
We've been hoping that there would be a bill put forth that we could support, but so far I'm not aware of anything.
As group home residents face an uncertain future, family members fear what might come next.
I can't imagine what would happen if the funding stops. I can't imagine.
In Charlotte, I'm Michael McGinnis reporting.
The state legislature is working on a short-term funding measure to help hold over residents.
Houston Summers is assuming the reins as student body president.
We'll tell you about the major obstacle he had to overcome to even be able to run for the position.
In 2.5 weeks, seniors and some graduate students will transition from school to the next phase of their lives. Reporter Amy Sale looks at how students handle the stress of the unknown.
Last May, more than 6,000 undergraduate and graduate students got their degrees. But this time of transition isn't always smooth sailing. UNC senior Matthew Guan says he gets stressed thinking about his life after graduation.
It's really scary, to be honest. We're all going into the real world now, and I feel like a lot of us aren't prepared for it.
Students under stress can show symptoms like feeling overwhelmed, hopeless, irritable, and depressed, says UNC psychiatrist Alan Obar.
Whether the upcoming transition is ending school and moving on either to graduate school or the unknown that's out there when you don't know what the next thing is.
Anxiety about the unknown also applies to graduate students. Take Becky Spitzer, graduating with a master's in public health this May.
Just not knowing, because I'm a planner, I like to know where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing so I can plan ahead and have that all figured out.
Although students can't change the sources of their stresses, Obar says managing time can help.
We can't expand time, but what we can do is help people learn how to process their anxiety and be able to make the most of the time that they have.
Physical activity like exercising helps Matthew Guan cope.
Main thing I've been doing is going to the gym, like being sure to spend a lot of time with my friends. Like, it's definitely self-care.
Campus Health Services also recommends maintaining consistent sleep patterns and good nutrition to manage stress. In Chapel Hill, I'm Amy Sale reporting.
Well, there's one thing we won't have to stress about anymore. Construction in Kenan Stadium is done and the field is ready for graduation. Workers began ripping up the field in early December to replace an aging storm water drain pipe. Some were skeptical about whether the field would be done in time for graduation because of weather delays. But the grass is laid just in time for seniors to walk across it in their caps and gowns on Mother's Day. Carolina is bringing back one of its own for graduation this year. Jason Kyler, founding CEO of Hulu, will return to campus to speak at the commencement ceremony. A 1993 graduate, Kyler resigned from Hulu in 2013 and is now the CEO of Vessel, a subscription video service. Commencement is Sunday, May 10th at 9 a.m. in Kenan Stadium.
Summer's coming, but student body president Houston Summers is gearing up for fall. Our Sarah Rutherford talked to him about his goals for the next year.
Applause and a standing ovation. Student body president Houston Summers says he's grateful for the opportunity to serve because it almost didn't happen. At 11 years old, Summers developed an aggressive tumor the size of a baseball in his right brain.
It was an incredibly scary situation, being, one day literally just happy playing, running around, doing everything I could, and then next thing I know, I'm in a hospital and laying there on an operating table getting ready to go under what would be 18 hours worth of surgery.
The experience taught Summers to take advantage of opportunities, like running for SBP.
It was this kind of seeing a need and stepping up to kind of fill that role, if you will, and taking advantage of an opportunity that I had and the platform that I had of being a student athlete, of being a non-traditional student.
Houston is 27 and played 7 seasons of professional baseball before coming to Carolina, but he says he's just like any other student and wants to be treated that way.
And just as you would walk up to a friend or text a friend and call them and say, hey man, I really don't like what's going on here. Can we sit down and can we talk about it? That's what I want.
There's one other thing he wants the student body to know.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch is my favorite cereal and I absolutely love it.
You can chat with Summers about your favorite brand of cereal or anything else at Carolina Conversations and Old Well Talks, a series of open forums. Houston's hope for the series?
That we make this a relational experience and understand that, you know, we're in this together and we're going to do our best for one another.
Houston says building community is worth more than all the applause in the world. In Chapel Hill, I'm Sarah Rutherford reporting.
Summers is hosting an open forum Thursday night at 6 p.m. in the Campus Y called Houston, We Have a Problem.
According to the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, more than 76,000 species are at risk of extinction. AJ Nwoko tells us one of them makes its home off the North Carolina coast.
Can you hear it? It's the songs of the coast. And perhaps the loudest voice in this symphony of the sea belongs to the right whale.
It's a large, 15 meter long baleen whale.
Duke University professor Douglas Nowacek says the songs of these marine mammals are fading fast.
They are historically known as the right whale because they were the right whale to kill. Now we have somewhere between 400 and 500.
Ship strikes and fishing nets still cause whale deaths every year, but the search for oil could drive the species even closer to extinction. And to search for it, petroleum companies are using seismic guns.
So they bring compressed air down to the gun, it lets that compressed air go, and then it's basically a controlled explosion.
Scientists use the reverberations from these explosions to produce a 3D image of the ocean deep.
An explosion on land that's used to clear rock or whatever, that's the kind of scale that we're talking about. It's not like a little pop gun.
Out here on the coast, sound pollution from boats, sonar, and other man-made sources are affecting the very existence of the right whale. But other creatures that inhabit these same waters may also be at risk.
So lots of animals in the ocean use sound. It's an important modality because it travels farther than anything else. Light doesn't travel very far in the ocean, so sound is a very important modality for these guys.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has extended a proposal to expand the critical habitat for the right whales along the East Coast, which would prevent oil companies from surveying in the designated areas.
And so if we have critical habitat, there's more push and pull, right? It's critical habitat for right whales. What sort of activities should we allow in those areas?
While the public tries to answer those questions, these endangered whales continue to brave noisy waters. And for now, their songs must go on. In Beaufort, North Carolina, I'm AJ Nwoko reporting.
There is currently no seismic surveying taking place, and experts tell us the right whale population has actually increased in the past decade.
The azaleas are in full bloom just in time for graduation.
And the weather is looking hot this week. Drew Day is next with your forecast.
Welcome back to Carolina Week, everyone. Thanks for staying with us. We have plenty of sunshine across the state today, and that allowed temperatures to warm up into the upper 70s across the state. We do have some clouds now beginning to push in from the northwest, and those showers may give us a sprinkle or two later this evening. The radar is not showing anything currently, and the reason we may see a few showers is because we have this area of low pressure up to the north and a cold front that's producing these clouds here, and again, maybe a shower later this evening, but certainly not a big deal. No need to take the umbrella with you, in my opinion, at least later on this evening. But what this cold front will do, while not bringing us showers, will cool temperatures down once we get into a northwesterly flow behind the front. So let's take a look at that right now. By 8 p.m. this evening, that front will be across the central part of the state at that point, and it will begin to push offshore. So that by the time we wake up tomorrow morning, again, we'll be in that north to northwesterly flow, advecting colder air into the state for the day tomorrow. By Thursday evening, this area of high pressure begins to build in from the west, and it really hangs around for the day on Friday. So by 2 o'clock, it's in the southern part of the state, and then finally begins to push offshore late in the day on Friday, so that we may get into a little bit of a southwesterly flow. But that's really not going to warm temperatures up. We expect temperatures to remain in the 60s because we'll just have plenty of clouds around. And then we'll turn our attention to the west with this next area of low pressure here. It begins to push eastward and again it starts to bring in a little bit of a southerly flow. Again, normally you would have some warm air along with this southwesterly flow, but it looks like at this point it's just going to be some moisture bringing in. So we expect an increase in clouds for the day on Saturday. So showers will be possible as this area of low pressure approaches from the west. And then right, of course, when you know it, once the computer model ends, then things get exciting. And that's when it comes to an end at this point. So we do expect for some showers for the day on Saturday. So overnight tonight, expect temperatures to be in the upper 40s with partly cloudy skies, a westerly wind at 8 to 10 miles per hour. By tomorrow afternoon, temperatures will be in the upper 60s, so about 10 degrees colder tomorrow. Be prepared for that with mostly sunny skies. Winds could be gusting up to 24 miles per hour, so keep that in mind as well. By 8 a.m., temperatures will be in the upper 40s with perhaps some cloud cover at that point, but then we'll see more sunshine in the afternoon. Temperatures in the upper 60s with right around 57 degrees for the day on tomorrow afternoon and evening. Then for the 5-day forecast, temperatures hang around in the upper 60s for the day on Friday at 69, 62 for the day on Saturday and some showers, and now probably going to have to add some showers in for the day on Sunday as well at 64. But it looks like temperatures are going to be cooler than normal for the next couple of days here.
Doesn't look too bad of an outlook.
No, 60s is not cold at all.
Yeah. And hopefully not too much rain. Thank you, Drew.
All right.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
What can regular students do to help the men's basketball team excel?
Molly Oak is next with sports.
Welcome to Carolina Week Sports. I'm Molly Oak. The athletics department has come out with a new branding campaign and new uniforms. The classic Carolina blue look is getting refreshed, and I'm just going to come out and say it looks good. Nike and award-winning clothing designer Alexander Julian helped to redesign the uniforms. Each of the 28 varsity sports starting in fall of 2015 will have consistent colors, logos, lettering, and numerals, which means, drumroll please, more Argyle. Check out that BEA beautiful pattern. The biggest change? Football team. It's their second overhaul in 2 years. It was bacon night at the Bosch yesterday, but the bacon wasn't the only thing being served hot. The Diamond Heels took on Campbell University in a game that was close at the start with defensive plays like this smooth catch. Wait for it, Skybolt is about to slide right in here and there's an out for the Heels. That all changed in the 5th inning when the Heels got sizzling hot, scoring 4 runs off of 5 hits, including this RBI double by who else? Skybolt, like a bolt of lightning out there. He's killing it. The Heels ended up winning the game 8-3 and will host Boston College in a weekend series at the Bosch. Tar Heel voices should ring clear and true, especially during basketball season in the Dean E. Smith Center. Coach Roy Williams is making his voice clear. He expects more crowd support. Ashley Perry has the story.
The Tar Heels had just secured an 89-60 win against Georgia Tech, and Roy Williams was furious.
I was a little disappointed that more of our crowd didn't have more savvy. But I felt like they were asleep most of the day anyway, so it was about all right. And that's not intended to be criticism, but it's criticism. We need some dadgum help.
Help from nearly 22,000 fans who applauded sporadically from their seats despite shots like this. Yeah. One UNC professor struck a chord with students when he tweeted a solution to Williams' enthusiasm problem. Let more students fill the Dean Dome.
More students bring more energy and bring more excitement than the big donors who are sitting there and not going to be nearly as animated as students.
But according to Senior Associate Athletic Director Clint Gwaltney, that's easier said than done.
It's not as simple as just saying, okay, we want more sideline seats or we want more lower level seats. It's a much greater dialogue than that.
Student seating is currently located in the risers in front of sections 116 through 118 and parts of section 116 through 118, part of section 107, and various areas throughout the upper bowl. In a low estimate based on this year's Georgia Tech game, the basketball program makes $13,611,016 a year in seating revenue. If students got these 3 prime sections, the basketball program would lose more than $1 million in seating revenue. So conversations like these have a long way to go. In Chapel Hill, Ashley Perry reported.
Now, a lot of ACCs coming up, women's and men's tennis and women's and men's lacrosse. Now, if you've got a car, or hey, carpool, good for the environment, head on down to Cary for the women's and men's tennis games, because if you're a student, you get in for free.
Well, we're all about to graduate, so let's make a trip.
And college students love free stuff.
Thanks, Molly.
Thanks.
Many students think about leaving their legacy here at UNC.
Every year at this time, thousands of seniors wait in line to do just that.
It's one of the most iconic places on campus, the Bell Tower, and the Bell Tower Climb is a rite of passage for graduating seniors. At the annual Bell Tower Climb, students took part in the unofficial tradition of writing their names on the walls. Students began to line up in the early morning, and by midday, the crowd wrapped around Kenan Stadium, forcing some seniors to wait in line for hours. The General Alumni Association sponsored the event, a featured part of the class of 2015's Senior Week activities. I know I went to the walk and I waited for around 4 hours.
I was out of town, so my name will not appear on one of the bricks.
Oh no, well that's okay. Are you going to be able to do some other Senior Week stuff?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. Well, as we all know, it's going to be a sad day when we have to leave the studio, but it's been a great semester.
That does it for this edition of Carolina Week.
Thanks for watching. Good night.